Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Shane Walsh podcast. It is a big week. The Female Fat Loss program is going live on Friday at 10 a.m. So if you are on the priority list, you get access to the Female Fat Loss program for a 33% discount. 8 weeks of coaching, accountability, support, weekly check-ins, tailored nutritional guidance, one-to-one call with myself, accountability, support from everyone else in the group, and 8 weeks of coaching, all for €99. So if you are interested, click a link in the show notes and book your spot on the priority list and book your spot for 10 a.m. on Monday. Only 30 spaces. I keep it small because otherwise people are going to get lost. And when people see other coaches and stuff like that putting 300, 400 people into a program, they have a massive team of coaches, and it's not even the coach you're signing up for is working with you. So just giving you that feedback. So if you are interested in working with me on the 20th version of the Female Fat Loss program, it all kickstarts on Monday, the 7th of September. So when the kids are back to school, you can finally start to put yourself first, and the program is there for you. So click a link in the show notes to book your spot now. So one of the big things that I've spoken about recently with a lot of clients, particularly kind of clients that kind of coming in on their new phase, is in relation to can you really eat your favorite foods like chocolate and still lose weight? And if you spent years of yo-yo dieting, and this is one of the topics I talk about in the book, which will be out in November, so another shameless plug. If you've really spent years of yo-yo dieting and years of dieting, you might not be able to answer this. And you might already know the answer on the other side of this, that you've been taught, and the answer is no. Chocolate is bad, carbs are bad, chocolate's a treat, carbs are bad, sugar is bad, aspartame is bad, fats are bad, any food is bad. And if you're trying to lose weight, you probably feel like you should stay away from those foods. That's the big reality of things. But what if I told you that that's the problem? That is the problem right now. And the answer that kind of comes to mind is that answer about kind of like what the Pringles motto is: once I pop, I just can't stop. That's generally what people freak out about. People will feel, and this is no dig, this is no pop, but it's where your headspace is at, that you feel that if you leave those foods out, you are in control. But the reality is that's what's making you feel out of control. The fact is, learning how to eat your favorite foods without guilt, without losing control, or deciding that you've ruined everything is probably the most important thing to create a sustainable weight loss journey. Because the problem isn't the chocolate. And most importantly, the chocolate isn't you. You aren't the chocolate. And the problem is that you aren't the problem either. Either is your willpower, either is your discipline. The problem is it's the relationship that you've been taught to have with it. So what we're going to talk about is the element of chocolate. We're talking about cravings. We're talking about restriction. We're talking about calories. We're talking about guilt. We're talking about shame, and how you can actually have a life. And this doesn't need to be miserable. So the fact you're feeling out of control and you're saying, I can't have this because of control, means that you're not in control. So let me start with the obvious question. Chocolate contains calories. I don't think that's revolutionary information. Some chocolate contains quite a fair bit of calories for a relatively small amount. So if you're trying to lose body weight or body fat, does that mean you have to eliminate it? No. So fat loss tends to come down to your overall energy balance over time. And that means you can absolutely include chocolate within your daily allowance and weekly allowance and all that kind of stuff. The mistake for most people is, if I am trying to lose weight, I need to be miserable and every food I eat has to be a diet food. Has to be low fat, has to be high protein, whatever it might be. There's certain supermarkets out there selling high protein water and high protein bread, and I would rather play in traffic than actually eat any of those. Not every meal in your whole life has to have protein in it. Is it great for keeping you full and helping your bone health? Yes, but it's not a moral failing. You haven't killed a puppy by not having protein in a meal. And not every meal has to be diet in inverted commas. That's simply not realistic, and also not what it takes. Your diet doesn't have to consist of that bro thing of chicken, rice, broccoli, and protein shakes. It doesn't. You can have chocolate. You can have pizza. You can have ice cream. And in fact, a lot of my clients now have realized my ice cream love of ice cream is now, that's one of their wins when they're communicating with me, is that they're sharing pictures of their kids having ice cream with them. And even one of my clients from one of the previous groups had never had ice cream with their kids before. And then they were sending me a message they sent me 2 images in the space of a week, bringing their kids to have an ice cream for the first time in their lives. Their kids are like 6, 7, I didn't intentionally to do that, 6 or 7. But you can eat out. You can have meals. I've never had a client derail themselves. And that's not a brag, that's a fact, because one meal doesn't derail anyone. One meal out doesn't derail anyone. A hen party or a weekend away doesn't derail anyone. But people put too much focus on that rather than putting enough focus on getting back into routine. A routine just means back to what you were doing as long as it isn't restriction. So the problem what you're having right now is the facts that we have these called labels. Good food or bad food. I'm being good for eating a salad. I'm being bad if I had chocolate. Or I'm being clean, or I'm having a cheat food, or this is healthy food, or this is unhealthy food. All food has a place. And once chocolate gets put into that bad category, or a food gets put into that bad category, something interesting happens. You want it more. And this is something I talk about in the book, is if I tell you right now not to think of a pink elephant, what are you thinking of right now? My guess is you're thinking of that pink elephant. You tell yourself you can't have chocolate. So it's up on this pedestal and suddenly you're thinking about that chocolate even more. You walk past the cupboard. So what most people tend to do when they start off on a diet is, I can't have these foods, and then the weight drops. But what happens when life ramps up? What happens if your coping mechanism is food? What happens if you have a shit day? What happens if your kids shit themselves? What happens if you have a thing with your partner, an argument with your partner? You walk past the cupboard, you're thinking about the food, you have a stressful day, you're thinking about the food, and eventually say, screw it, fuck this, I'm just going to implode here. So you've already broken that golden rule that you have set for yourself. But rules will be broken because they're not realistic for you. And then comes the guilt, then comes that whole thing, I've ruined my diet, and then tomorrow is going to be extra strict. That's going to make you feel more out of control. Think about it like a bar of soap. That when you have a bar of soap in your hand and it's wet, and the more you try to squeeze it, the more it tries to slip out of your hands. So the issue isn't the chocolate. It isn't a willpower. It isn't anything. And it's not a you problem. It's a restriction problem. And I'm going to say this really, really distinctly. Until you can learn how to have your favorite foods in your life, you will never keep the weight off. Now, there are approaches and coaches out there who are like, right, get people into a fitness photo shoot and they lose loads of weight really quickly. There are people who promote aggressive dieting, which as research has shown can be great for some people, but it's all could be an awful approach for some people. But quick weight loss, taking out certain foods and your favorite foods isn't going to solve the problem. If you want to learn how to keep the weight off for good, well, then it's about learning how to introduce those foods and bring those in. And why that restriction can make things more powerful. So think of something you've been told you can't have or you shouldn't do. Suddenly you want to do it more. That pink elephant analogy again. It's the same reason that when someone tells you don't think about a pink elephant, what's the first thing you think about? You tell yourself, I can absolutely, no fact, no matter what, I can't eat chocolate. Your brain doesn't necessarily stop thinking about chocolate. It can become more desirable because it feels forbidden. It feels like you're rebelling. And this is why learning to include those foods will lead you to change. You're taking away that forbidden fruit or forbidden food mentality. You don't have to earn it either. Another mindset that I want to challenge is this whole thing, I have to earn my food. I've been good today. I've burnt loads of calories today. I have to earn my chocolate. Maybe you've thought I'll have dessert because I did a workout. That's toxic. That's toxic justification. Or I can have chocolate because I was good all day. You weren't good all day. You just ate like the way you wanted to in order to nourish yourself. You weren't good. You're not a dog. But food isn't a reward, or it's not a punishment. But food isn't a reward for exercising, and exercise isn't a punishment for eating. You don't have to run 5 kilometers in order to enjoy the foods. You don't have to skip dinner because you had dessert. You don't have to compensate for enjoying food. You can simply acknowledge, I choose to eat some of these foods, the chocolate, and enjoy it and carry on as much as possible. That's a much healthier mindset. Just because you eat chocolate doesn't mean you can eat unlimited amounts and expect it to happen. You can lose weight by eating just chocolate, but you're not going to feel great doing it. Chocolate still contains calories. This drink here in front of me, the smoothie here in front of me, contains calories. But the goal isn't eat as much chocolate as you want. And that's what people forget about. That food freedom thing that you hear people talk about, or that intuitive eating thing, is it's not eating all the foods that you feel you can't have all the time. It's being allowing yourself to have them. But the goal that most people are missing out on that trips them up is learning how to include those favorite foods without it controlling you. Control isn't restriction. Do not mix up control and restriction. For some people, it's learning how to have some each day. For some people, it might be having it a few times a week. There's no magic number. The important thing is about finding out what you can generally stay to. Now, I have to talk about one of the other things is, Shane, that sounds really, really great, but I can't just eat 2 squares of chocolate, or once I pop, I just can't stop. If I buy a bar, I'll have the whole thing. I need to get the food out of the house. And if that's you, I want you to challenge that. I want you to get curious. Is chocolate genuinely irresistible? Or have you spent years telling yourself you're not allowed to have it? Because if you've been restricting chocolate for months, years, centuries, not centuries, decades, then finally having access to it can feel like I eat much better. I can take it or leave it. I'll have it when I want it. Because the reality is, when we overeat it, when we've haven't eaten enough during the day, is probably when you want it more. And when we want more of it again is when there's emotional need not being met, or we're unable to meet it. So that scarcity is driving that overeating. And it's not discipline or willpower. It's normally that you're not eating enough. And sometimes the answer isn't more restriction. Sometimes the answer is allowing yourself to have the food. And there's a thing called habituation, which I talk about in the book as well. It's allowing yourself to have that food regularly. And that's when it comes into that Last Supper effect. On a Sunday, generally, you know that feeling, your diet starts tomorrow, you're going to get all those foods out of the house by eating them. The pizza, the chocolate, the ice cream, the takeaway, the bottle of wine. Because tomorrow, everything is changing. Because every Monday, something's going to change. And then Monday comes, you're extremely restrictive, you're hungry, you're miserable, you want to kill someone, and then you crack. And then the diet starts again the following Monday. Because diets always start on Monday. But this is why I don't want you thinking I'm allowed I'm allowed chocolate until Monday. What I want you thinking is chocolate is a food I can have in my life, or I can include in my life. There's no Last Supper. Save the Last Suppers to Jesus, and there's no final chance. You do not need to eat everything tonight because the foods are going to exist tomorrow. There's no need to eat everything now because food is still going to exist tomorrow. Chocolate will still exist tomorrow. So what does sustainable fat loss look like? If your diet is making you miserable, big red flag. Just like if your partner is a narcissist, big red flag. So how long are you realistically going to stick to it if it makes you miserable? 3 days, 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months? And what happens when you reach your goal? Are you going to spend the rest of your life avoiding chocolate? Of course not, because that's not sustainable. Everyone can lose weight by cutting out foods. I could lose weight right now by cutting off my arm. Doesn't mean it's a good idea. The difference between losing weight and learning how to maintain your weight. You don't want to lose 10 kg and put it back on. Not because it's a moral failing or having a pop at anyone, but it starts to play on your head space that you can't do it. Because if you can't enjoy what you're doing, you're never going to stick to it. That's half the issue. The 80-20 mindset is that flexible approach, that middle ground, that messy middle. If you think of yo-yo dieting, it's a pendulum. So you either have all the food. If you think about all or nothing mindset it's having all the food and then you're having none of the food. But somewhere in that messy middle is where the success is. It's not these two extremes. Until someone can find, and there will be times it ramps up and goes the other extreme. It's not that it never overeats. It's not that we never emotionally. It's not that we never stress eat. It's finding that messy middle for ourselves. And most of your diet can be built around nutritious meals, eating regularly, protein, vegetables. And when people start giving out about the food pyramid, most people aren't sticking to the food pyramid. So no wonder it doesn't fricking work. The food pyramid's not the issue. Our brains cannot compute the amount of food abundance we have in our lives right now. Food is always going to be there. We are in an environment right now where we have a food abundance. We're not over in a third world country where food is scarcity. Our brains cannot compute it. Chocolate doesn't have to provide a huge amount of nutrition to have place in your diet. It can be something that you share with your partner. It can be part of your life. It can be something for a date. It can be something that you share with each other. It can be something that you can have in your life, but doesn't need to be earned, doesn't need to be taken out. The 5 things I want you to try and do is stop calling it a bad food. Number 2 is eat it each day and it will call habituation. Number 3, stop compensating. Number 4, look at overall diet. Are you eating enough? And for the love of frickin' all that is HB ice cream, stop expecting perfection, because perfection is like my hairline. It does not exist. Some days you'll eat more, some days you'll eat less. But you beating yourself up and kicking yourself in the stones every single frickin' time that you overeat is what's keeping people stuck. This episode isn't really about the chocolate. The biggest lesson is chocolate is just the example. The biggest lesson is, can you lose weight without creating a list of foods that you're terrified of? Can you lose weight without being derailed by going out for dinner? Can you lose weight while having birthdays? Can you lose weight while traveling? Can you lose weight while enjoying meals out? Can you lose weight without spending your entire life saying, I can't have that? Because that's what I'm trying to teach people. Not just weight loss, actual freedom. So this is the last thing to do. There's a reason why I'm not the first person people go to. Because those shiny objects, those diets where they're offering money for the biggest loser, they're shiny, but they're not fixing shit. They're fixing a number on the scales for about 6 to 8 weeks and they're doing fuck all afterwards. The ability to make choices without being controlled by food is the biggest difference. And that's why the Female Fat Loss program is very different. I'm trying to teach people how to survive by nourishing themselves, by getting away from those 1,200 calories, by building a diet that works around their real life, that includes sandwiches, but includes weekends, includes chocolate, includes birthdays, includes holidays, includes understanding how to nourish yourself around your cycle, including portions, including calories, to develop that confidence that they may not need me afterwards. But the goal is the goal for me is to create someone who doesn't need a perfect diet. It's about empowering people that they know how to do it afterwards. That's why I've written the book. That's why I've created the Female Fat Loss program with the help of other clients. So can you lose weight by eating chocolate without guilt? Yes. Can you eat it without ruining it every day? Yes. So if you want to join the Female Fat Loss program and finally learn how to do this, click a link in the show notes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please let me know. But if this episode shared with someone who has ever said, I can't have chocolate, I'm trying to lose weight, and remember, you can. But if you're in that mindset of, I can't have this and stuff in the house, join the freaking program and I will teach you how to do it. The program starts on Monday, the 7th of September. The early bird offering of €99 opens up on the 28th of August. Click a link in the show notes or pop us a DM if you have any queries. It's only 30 spaces and they will go fast.